Cleaner discovers life-changing call, how she unexpectedly saved a billionaire's biggest client. Sarah wiped the sweat from her brow as she bent low, scrubbing the stained floor of a private hospital room. The smell of antiseptic filled her senses, a reminder of the countless hours she dedicated to her job cleaning at the local hospital. But that ordinary Tuesday turned extraordinary when she found herself face to face with a VIP patient, a frail, elderly gentleman who exuded an air of quiet dignity. As he shared his fears of dying alone, the vulnerability in his eyes cracked her heart wide open. For a moment, the bustling sounds of the hospital faded away. This man wasn't just a patient, he was a person. She could sense his loneliness lingering in the sterile air. In her early 30s, Sarah might have lived a modest life, but her heart was rich. Her late father had always said, "Character carries more weight than wealth." She had felt that truth resonate deeply in her soul, urging her to connect with this man, to be his comfort in a world that so often overlooked him. But when she sought help from the staff, her attempts were met with dismissals, eye rolls, and snickers. "Just a cleaner," they whispered, oblivious to the gravity of her concern. Anger bubbled inside of Sarah. How could they care so little? She felt her chest tighten, a familiar sensation when injustice reared its ugly head. These moments made her feel every bit of the disparity carved out by social status, but she wouldn't stand by. She made a promise to the man to check in on him, and she intended to keep it. Days blurred into one another. The hospital walls felt colder as she worked, her thoughts often drifting to the patient who had sparked an unexpected connection. She witnessed the indifference of the staff, their eyes glazed over as they shuffled past. He was reduced to a mere patient number. Dignity, a simple word. But it felt like a distant dream for him. Each time she'd silence her anxiety, opening the door and peeking in, he would smile, and her heart would ache with the hope of connection, but her advocacy came at a cost. When she insisted on bringing him blankets or reading him a book, her actions were deemed inappropriate, even rebellious. "You're treading on thin ice," a nurse warned her, her tone icy. Just like that, Sarah found herself standing in the parking lot of the hospital, empty-handed after being fired. Panic gripped her heart. How could she feed Lily? Or keep her safe? The weight of her world pressed down hard, but Sarah wiped her tears away, finding strength in her resolve. As luck would have it, just then, a luxurious car pulled up. Out stepped a billionaire, the very friend of the patient. She recognized him from the news, dressed in tailored suits and exuding confidence. He stopped when he saw her, concern etching his features. As the words tumbled from her lips about the man's plight, she felt raw and exposed, but also powerful. He listened intently. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." "Thank you for speaking up," he said softly, catching her gaze like a lifeline. "I'll investigate this. You matter, and so does he." Hope flared in her heart, but doubts lingered. Could she really make a difference? The tension thickened, swirling around her thoughts. As he turned to leave, Sarah's heart raced. Would her fight be in vain? Could she ever stand up against indifference in a world ruled by wealth? Her spirit stirred with questions. But she knew one thing: she had ignited a spark, and now, there was no turning back. Days of uncertainty followed Sarah, each one stretching long as she waited for news. The billionaire's promise echoed in her mind, providing both solace and anxiety. Could he really make a difference? Every time her phone buzzed, her heart raced, hoping it would be him. But each call pushed her deeper into doubt. She needed to focus on finding work. Desperation drove her to apply everywhere she could think of, but no one wanted a fired cleaner. With each rejection, the walls of her small apartment felt more like a prison. Lily, her little girl, tried her best to keep the mood light, often dancing around the living room. Her innocent laughter pierced through Sarah's worries, but it also reminded her of the weight she bore. How could she keep that spark of joy alive when her own heart felt heavy? Soon, Sarah approached the grocery store she frequented, her mind swirling with calculations. Could she afford just enough milk for Lily? As she pushed the cart forward, she noticed a flyer stuck to the wall, an event at the local community center. It was a charity fundraiser for the hospital, a place she had just come from. The funds were to help with patient care and support, likely going to bring some warmth into the sterile world she had recently witnessed. That could be her chance. If she attended, she could share her story. Maybe she could reach out to the staff she had hoped to help. Grasping the flyer tightly, she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her again. The night of the fundraiser arrived, and Sarah dressed as best she could. Her outfit was simple, yet it felt like armor. As she walked into the packed room, she was overwhelmed by the conversations buzzing around her, the energy palpable. People were laughing, mingling, enjoying themselves. It was a world far removed from hospital rooms filled with loneliness. She spotted the billionaire, standing at a table with a group, animating their conversation. Her heart thudded in her chest. Should she approach him? Was it too soon? Just then, he caught her eye and walked over, his gaze steady and sincere. "Sarah. I wasn't sure if you'd come," he said, a warm smile brightening his face. "It feels good to be out away from that place," she admitted, her voice quiet but steady. Then she lowered her voice, leaning in. "I wanted to talk about the patient, the one we discussed at the hospital." His expression shifted, a serious note entering his demeanor. "I spoke with the hospital administration. They're reviewing his case. And there's something else. We might be able to arrange a room in a good care facility for him. I want you by my side as we take this further." Hope surged within her, threatening to spill over. The world suddenly felt a little brighter. She was about to express her gratitude when a loud commotion erupted from the corner of the room. A man was arguing, raising his voice over the crowd. "Why should we care about those people? They're just numbers," he yelled, meeting the collective shock of attendees. Silence fell, tension hanging in the air like a thick fog. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. It was a confrontation she recognized too well, the indifference she had faced. But now, surrounded by the power of community, indignation surged within her. This was her moment to advocate not just for the old man, but for all the patients written off as mere statistics. "Wait!" she called out, her voice suddenly confident. All eyes turned toward her, and the room held its breath in anticipation of what she would say next. "People are not numbers." Sarah's voice rang clear through the silence. She took a step forward, feeling the weight of 100 eyes, each one filled with curiosity and skepticism. "They are lives, stories, families. We are not just here to watch them fade away." The room crackled with tension. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, while others leaned in, intrigued. The argument had jolted them from their weekend bliss, and Sarah saw the crack notch open in their carefully curated lives. She had to seize that moment. "Every statistic you dismiss," she continued, her heart pounding, "is a person who once laughed, loved, and dreamed. The man I'm fighting for, he has family. He deserves dignity, not to be forgotten in a corner of a hospital." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. She locked eyes with the billionaire, who watched her intently, impressed perhaps, or moved. It drove her on. Imagine if it were your father or mother, or even someone you love left to linger, as if their names didn't matter. "We can make a difference. We should want to make a difference." Each word ignited the fire of empathy she hoped to spark within them. "And it starts here, tonight," she urged, glancing around. "If we rally, we can help not just one man, but maybe dozens, all the people in need who are burdened by the same fate. The hospital needs our support." Let us show them they are not alone. The man who had shouted before stood, his face twisted in confusion. And what good does that do us? He tried to deflect, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. It does us good to be better, to be more than just wealthy guests at an event, Sarah replied fiercely, her pulse racing. It's time to connect beyond these walls. We have a chance to give those voices a platform. To remind everyone that compassion is stronger than indifference. The tension in the air shifted, people began to whisper among themselves. She noticed the billionaire step closer, nodding slightly as if contemplating her words, each nod empowering her. Let us not walk away tonight feeling as if our contributions are just to fill seats and drink wine. Let us take a stand. No one should feel they have to give up hope. A few attendees murmured in agreement, their spirits beginning to ignite. Then, from the side, an older gentleman pushed through the crowd. He wore a worn-out suit, his hair grizzled, but his eyes sparkled with fervor. "She's right," he declared, voice hoarse yet full of conviction. "We owe it to everyone who can't fight for themselves." As others began to echo his support, Sarah's heart soared. It was happening. Change was brewing in the atmosphere around them. The momentum she needed was building. Just when she thought she had captivated the crowd fully, the billionaire grabbed her arm gently, leaning in closer. "Let us take this further," he murmured, eyes bright with determination. "I have resources and connections, but we need a plan." Sarah felt electricity dance through her at his words, the prospect of an alliance. But before she could respond, another figure emerged from the back, a woman with unmistakable authority, dressed in a tailored suit, storming toward them with an icy demeanor that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "You're all wasting your time," the woman declared, her voice cutting through the burgeoning excitement. "This is a place for fun, not a political rally." Sarah's heart sank, and a chill swept through the room. Could this moment slip away just as quickly as it had surfaced? Wait, Sarah thought, realization dawning on her. What if she's the key to it all? How could this evening shift from a battle of indifference to a rapprochement with power? As the whispers of concern rippled through the crowd, Sarah took a deep breath, the stakes suddenly feeling much higher. "Maybe," she started, stepping up to face the formidable newcomer, "we need to consider this after all. What could this mean for their mission? How far was she willing to go to turn indifference into action?" The woman didn't flinch. She stood her ground, the confidence radiating off her like heat from the sun. The guests, still buzzing with excitement from Sarah's speech, now hesitated, caught between their initial enthusiasm and the authoritative presence that demanded decorum. "Do you really think dragging us down this path will do anyone any good?" The newcomer pressed, her eyes narrowing. "We're here to celebrate achievements, not wallow in the misfortunes of the world. Sometimes, ignorance is bliss." Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach at the blatant dismissal. Her heart raced, but she couldn't let doubt creep in. "But at what cost?" she challenged, her voice steadying. "How can we enjoy our success while ignoring those who need our help?" Silence fell over the room. For a moment it was just the two of them, the unwavering woman in her tailored suit and Sarah, the passionate soul who believed in a greater good. She could feel the weight of everyone's gaze shifting back and forth between them. Each second stretched out like a taut string, waiting to snap. "Bliss is not turning a blind eye," Sarah pressed on, her pulse quickening. "True fulfillment comes from lifting others up, from making a real impact." The billionaire beside her watched intently, his expression carefully scrutinizing. He seemed to sense the shift in energy, and his presence was like an anchor. This was her moment. "But why should we involve ourselves in the messy lives of others?" The woman countered, crossing her arms defiantly. "We've worked hard for our successes. Why sacrifice our evening?" "Because giving back transforms us," the older gentleman chimed in, his voice softer but resolute. "When we help others, we start to understand what really matters. It brings us together. It makes us human." Some guests nodded, swayed by his words, while others looked unsure. The tension hung thick in the air, like fog that wouldn't lift. "Look, I know this is uncomfortable," Sarah continued, battling the doubts surrounding her. "But nothing worth doing is easy. We can't pretend those who suffer are invisible. We all share this world." Behind her, the billionaire leaned closer, whispering, "Think big. If we gather support from influential people like her, we can shift the narrative." Sarah nodded but kept her eyes fixed on the woman. "Imagine the power we wield. A few of us can create a ripple that turns into a wave of change. Wealth means nothing if it remains unshared." Finally, the icy woman's posture thawed slightly, the challenge in her gaze softening as she considered the implications of Sarah's words. "And if we fail?" she asked, her voice losing some of its edge. "Then we rise again," Sarah replied, her heart racing with hope. "I refuse to be paralyzed by doubt. Together, we can do something that lasts longer than our wealth." The crowd murmured again, a mix of uncertainty and agreement swirling within them. They were still on the fence, but Sarah could sense a shift. Hope was fuzzing the lines of trepidation, pulling them closer to her cause. Just as she felt the tide turning, the woman looked over Sarah's shoulder, her expression suddenly alert. "You," she said sharply, her voice suddenly commanding attention. "What's your story?" Sarah felt the eyes of the room turn to her again, the familiar weight settling on her shoulders. "I'm just someone who believes everyone deserves dignity, even when life has cast them aside." "Is that so?" the woman said, an intrigued smile creeping onto her lips. "Maybe we should talk, then." Sarah's heart raced, excitement and fear fighting for dominance. Could a single conversation spark the change she so fiercely desired? As the guests buzzed with newfound energy, Sarah felt the currents of possibility swirling around her. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. How would she summon the courage to face the struggles ahead when the stakes were this high? What awaited them when they stepped beyond the comfort of their lavish lives? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the woman stepped closer, her eyes sharp yet curious. This encounter had shifted in a way she didn't see coming. The room felt electrified, the air soaked with anticipation, as they both stood on the precipice of something unknown. "So you really believe that?" the woman pressed, tilting her head slightly. "That everyone deserves dignity?" "I do," Sarah replied, a bit more firmly now. "Look at how easily we forget. It's easy to dismiss the people we don't see every day. But they are there, suffering and struggling. We can make a difference." The woman nodded, but Sarah could tell she was still wrestling with something. "And how do you propose we do this? Letting the world in on our success stories feels risky. What if it doesn't change a thing?" "Then at least we tried," Sarah said, her confidence bubbling back up. "Life is about more than just profit margins and accolades. True success is measured by how we affect the lives of others." A soft murmur spread through the crowd. The billionaire, who had been quietly observing, leaned in further, drawn into Sarah's fervor. "People respond to integrity and leadership. If we take this chance," he added, "it could shift public perception." The woman crossed her arms again, her brow furrowing, as if assessing a deal. "You want to rally our resources, pool our connections, but what makes you think we'd even be successful?" "Because I believe in this cause," Sarah replied, feeling her heart pound harder. "We can't let fear dictate our actions. Look how much has already changed just by addressing the issue tonight." The room buzzed with low conversations, as a few guests began to speak in hushed tones, contemplating the prospect of joining Sarah's mission. Willingness flickered in their eyes, an awakening of sorts. "You may not have all the answers," the woman finally said, her facade cracking slightly. "But that passion, it's contagious. I can see that." Sarah felt a surge of hope. "Together, we can build something real, something powerful. We have the ability to change narratives and lift reinvention in those who feel unnoticed." The woman uncrossed her arms, a glimmer of interest flaring up in her eyes. And what if it falls apart? What then? Then we work harder. We learn from each misstep and keep going, Sarah said, her conviction clear. Each word felt like a stepping stone toward a brighter future. Life is about risking the known for the extraordinary. The billionaire's demeanor shifted in the face of Sarah's clarity. He leaned forward over the table, excitement bubbling in his voice. This is how movements start. One conversation at a time. Just look at the connections in this room. We could start small, and then grow. As the women exchanged thoughtful glances, the atmosphere began to shift dramatically. Conversations unfolded around them, ideas blossoming into potential projects and initiatives, ignited by the hope that Sarah had sparked. The plea hung in the air, not just as an idea but as a possibility now turning into reality. Sarah felt the energy pulsate through her, and as the once skeptical guests explored paths of engagement, she realized the tide had indeed begun to turn. But just as momentum reached a peak, the woman glanced past Sarah again. "Wait," she said sharply, her expression changing. "What about those who are truly resistant to change? What do we do about them?" Sarah's heart sank just a little. The path forward was slowly unfolding, but even with momentum, doubt and challenge loomed. Was everyone really ready to embrace the change she envisioned? Could they break through the barriers of their own hesitations and fears? A new chapter lay ahead, filled with uncertainty and untapped potential. All Sarah could do was take a deep breath and hope they'd navigate it together. The room tensed, a weight of uncertainty hanging over them like a thick fog. Sarah could see the flicker of doubt in the eyes of the people around her. They were all grappling with their own fears. What if they failed? What if their efforts were wasted? "Resistance is real," the woman continued, her tone revealing a deep understanding of the struggles they faced. "Sometimes people cling to their beliefs, even when they harm themselves and others." "I get that," Sarah replied, choosing her words carefully. "But isn't that exactly why we need to reach them? We won't just speak to the choir, we'll widen the circle. Engage those who feel comfortable in their ignorance. It's a risk, yes, but it could also be transformational." A voice from the back of the room broke the tension. "What if we turned the spotlight on those who have come through the other side? Let their stories inspire the reluctant ones." It was a timid suggestion from a man Sarah hadn't noticed before. He wasn't the usual crowd, but his sincerity struck a chord. "Yes!" Sarah exclaimed, eager to latch onto the momentum. Real stories, real people. They could see themselves in those narratives. The billionaire leaned back, contemplating. "It's a bold plan. How do we start? Who do we showcase?" Sarah glanced around, mind racing. "We can begin at the community level. Find those individuals in need of a voice, people who faced hard times but found a way back. If we can show the light at the end of the tunnel, it could change minds." "Yeah, and it won't just be about them," the woman interjected, growing more animated. "We can provide resources to help them share their journeys, training, platforms, mentorship." The energy in the room surged. Sarah's heart raced in tune with their excitement. She sensed change brewing, like a storm gathering strength before breaking through. All they needed was to take action, to harness this urgency. "Let us set up a meeting next week," the billionaire suggested, already shifting into business mode. "We'll brainstorm stories and set benchmarks. We'll make an agenda that names names and challenges the status quo. Can we start a social media campaign to reach a wider audience?" asked someone else, catching the spark of innovation. "Let us create buzz, draw attention to these stories. People respond to authenticity." As ideas began to flow, Sarah felt the joy swirl within her. This was it. They were on to something. The flickers of hope she had seen earlier now shined brightly across the room, illuminating faces that had previously held doubt. But just as she was beginning to feel invincible, the woman's question still loomed. The doubt didn't vanish. And what if they push back? She mused quietly, almost to herself. What if they resist us even more? The room fell silent at her words. Sarah felt the weight of possible rejection crashing down. Fighting against the odds felt overwhelming at times. But then she remembered why she was here in the first place. We can't ignore them just because it's hard. We need to be louder than the noise of negativity. We have to be persistent, she said, her voice gaining conviction again. As murmurs of agreement rose, enthusiasm sparked a renewed purpose. They were ready to face the challenges, to push forward even when the ground felt shaky beneath their feet. With a deep breath, Sarah smiled to herself, feeling a glimmer of hope. Igniting change had never been easy, but she wasn't afraid anymore. But then she remembered the faces of those who lacked a voice. Would they embrace this newfound momentum, or continue to languish in silence? That thought weighed on her as she stepped back to look at the group, her heart pounding with the prospect of what lay ahead. How many lives could they truly touch? And who might stand in their way? The next chapter was waiting, filled with risks, challenges, and the promise of transformation. Would they truly have the courage to break through? The following week, the room buzzed with a new energy. Papers scattered, and voices mingled in an animated dance of creativity. Sarah stood at the front, a whiteboard covered in colorful markers and ideas. Each suggestion was a potential lifeline, a small thread in the grand tapestry they aimed to weave. "All right, let us start with our first story," she encouraged, her heart thumping with enthusiasm. "Who do we want to feature? What do we want to showcase?" A young woman named Lily stepped forward, her cheeks flushed. "What about my cousin Mark? He was homeless for years, but he just landed a great job after turning his life around. His story could really inspire others." Sarah nodded, thrilled. "Yes. Mark's journey illustrates resilience and hope. We can show how support systems can turn lives around." Someone else chimed in, "And what about focusing on mental health? I work with a group that helps veterans heal through art. Their stories could highlight recovery and community support." Ideas soared like kites launched into the windy sky, and enthusiasm wrapped around them like a warm blanket. They felt unstoppable. Sarah felt her spirit soaring. This was it, the spark they needed. But in the back of her mind, the nagging question persisted: who would they lose along the way? Each name and face shared in those discussions was a step toward healing, yet a potential spark for resistance. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and the billionaire entered, a weary look gracing his features. He cleared his throat, bringing a hush over the gathering. "I've been listening to you all. I have an idea I think could take this campaign to the next level." He stepped forward, his stature commanding attention. "We need to showcase not only the struggles but the solutions. Let us take a trip into the heart of our community. I want to go directly to the places where these stories unfold, the shelters, the community centers, the parks where kindness is shared." Sarah's heart raced. "You mean actually going out? Meeting the people?" "Exactly," he said, his eyes brightening with conviction. "We can film the interactions, share unscripted moments, and bring authenticity to our project. I believe there's power in showing how we can impact each other's lives." A collective gasp of excitement echoed. This was risky, a leap into the unknown, but something in Sarah felt it could bridge gaps and connect hearts. "Let us get in the cars," the billionaire urged. "We can visit a couple of places today, meet some people, and share their stories. Let us show the world how change happens." With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah nodded. "Yes. Let us do it." They piled into vehicles, a mix of nervous energy and anticipation lingering in the air. As they drove toward the first community center, Sarah felt alive with possibility. Every block they passed transformed into a vibrant tapestry of stories, yet beneath her excitement, a sliver of doubt carved away at her joy. What if they faced hostility? What if those who resisted them saw their venture as an intrusion rather than a journey of connection? The car rolled to a stop, and they stepped out. The atmosphere buzzed with the hum of laughter and voices, with children playing and adults engaged in conversation. Sarah took a deep breath, soaking in the scent of possibility mixed with a hint of trepidation. Just then, a man with wild hair and worn shoes approached them, eyes filled with both hope and suspicion. "Who are you?" he asked, narrowing his gaze. "What do you want here?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Sarah's heart raced. Would they turn back now? Or would the resolve forged in their planning hold strong, allowing them to engage and connect? She stepped forward, ready to answer. But would her words be enough to bridge the divide? In this moment, everything felt at stake. Could they turn this encounter into something beautiful, or would it crumble under the weight of preconceived notions? This was just the beginning, and the real challenge was unraveling in front of them. Would they earn the trust of those they came to uplift, or remain a stranger's shadow? Sarah took a deep breath, the air thick with uncertainty. The man's question burned in her chest. She had come here to share stories of hope and resilience, yet standing in front of this stranger, everything felt fragile. "We're here to listen and learn," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of nerves. "We want to share your stories, to show the world the real you and how we can all change together." The man's brow furrowed, skepticism etched into his features. "And why should we believe you?" His arms crossed tightly, an unyielding wall against her words. The sounds of laughter and chatter surrounded them like a warm blanket, but his vibe was a cold gust of wind. Sarah looked around at the cheerful scene, at the vibrant life teeming in this place, the essence of community. But was he seeing the same picture? "We've got no agenda," she assured him. "Just a camera and a desire to highlight the good that's happening here, and we want to show the world how people like you are making an impact." A flicker of curiosity broke through the man's guarded expression, and Sarah seized on the moment. What if you could share your experiences? What if your voice could inspire change? He hesitated, glancing over at the children laughing nearby, then back at Sarah. There was something behind his eyes, a hint of longing mixed with wariness. "All right, but don't expect me to put on a show." A wave of relief washed over her. "We wouldn't dream of it. Just be yourself." As she engaged him further, the others in the group behind her sensed the thawing tension. One by one, they joined, voicing their interest, their warmth breaking through his walls. They began to create a safe space, sharing laughs, probing gently into his story without pressure. "See, we want to tell stories just like yours. Stories that remind folks there's more than what meets the eye," one of her companions added, a young man named Jake whose easygoing smile seemed to pierce the tension. The man's shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Okay, I had a brother, once. He was good at getting into trouble, but he never gave up. That's my story. That's how it started, just a simple spark of connection." With each word shared, the shadows of doubt began to fade. The barrier he'd erected melted away as they listened, really listened. They shared their own stories, their own vulnerabilities, and suddenly, they weren't strangers anymore. They were a small community bound by shared experiences. By the time the conversation wound down, Sarah felt as if a thread had been woven between them. "Can I film you talking about this? When you're ready?" He nodded, a hint of a smile breaking free. "I could try." Excitement bubbled in Sarah. She turned to the team, eyes wide. Entrusting individual talents in the group, they began setting up the cameras and equipment, something tangible emerging from the abstract ideas they had previously discussed. As they captured his narrative, emotions poured out, struggles interlaced with hope, vulnerability paired with strength. This man, once a stranger, now a beacon of resilience. But as the day unfolded beautifully, Sarah felt something lurking at the edges of her joy, a gnawing anxiety that their work might still not be enough. While they captured the essence of his story, what if the world was not ready to listen? Just when she thought the weight might become unbearable, a child burst into laughter nearby. The innocence wrapped around Sarah, lifting some of her worry. She turned to the man they had just filmed, eyes glistening with encouragement. "See? It all matters. You matter." The corners of his mouth turned upward. Maybe this can go somewhere." Just as they wrapped up, the billionaire approached, a smile on his face. "I can see the connection growing. Let us keep this momentum." There's power in your voices, but the moment was shattered by a shout from across the yard. A woman had taken notice of the camera crew and approached them with a fierce energy. "What do you think you're doing here?" Sarah felt her stomach drop. Would this encounter derail the progress they had just made? What would this next voice add to their journey? The air thickened with uncertainty, and then, the moment without answers hung heavy. The woman approached like a storm, her fierce eyes burning into Sarah's. Tension pulsed in the air. People around them began to whisper, their laughter fading into a hushed murmur. Sarah's heart raced. "We're here to share stories," she replied, her voice firmer now despite the trembling inside. "To show the beauty in this community and the resilience of its people." The woman's expression was unreadable. She took a step closer, crossing her arms tightly across her chest, eyes scanning the camera gear and the crew behind Sarah. "And who gave you permission? You think you can just film us like we're some kind of sideshow?" Feeling the weight of every curious stare, Sarah flicked a glance at her team. Jake stood ready, his camera poised, ready to capture the moment. Catching her breath, Sarah saw the man they had just filmed, his expression a mix of worry and defiance. "We're not trying to exploit anyone," Sarah pressed, her words coming out with desperation. "We want to tell real stories, to show the strength of this community. We believe it can make a difference." The woman took a deep breath, and for a moment, Sarah thought she might relent. But then the hardness returned, like steel. "And you think you're the voice of change? How can I trust you?" The man she had just spoken with stepped forward, drawing a line between Sarah and the accusatory woman. "She's right. We all have stories that matter. I've shared mine. You don't know what we're going through, what we've faced." The woman raised an eyebrow, skepticism still taut in her posture. "And then what? If you think you can change the world with a couple of videos, you're dreaming." Just as Sarah felt her resolve wavering under the weight of that doubt, Jake spoke up. "We're not looking to change the world in one day. Just shed some light on the truth. Something raw, something that people can connect with." The crowd around them began to shift, mirroring the energy of the conversation. Several others jumped in, backing Sarah's mission. "We're standing together here," one man said, looking at the woman. "We believe in the power of our stories. You're part of this community too." For a split second, Sarah saw a glimmer of doubt in the woman's eyes. It was a crack in her armor. Sarah leaned in, making one last appeal. "What if we could show the world the power of what's happening here? Your voice could be one of the strongest. Don't you want to be heard?" The woman's walls began to shatter, just as they had for the man moments before. Her defenses faltered when she heard the hope in Sarah's voice. The laughter of children had rekindled the essence of community. The woman glanced back, looking at the gathering crowd and then at the children playing. Sarah raised her camera, courage swelling in her chest. "You matter. Your experiences, your voice, it all matters. Would you be willing to help us share that truth?" A long moment passed, the tension was thick enough to slice. Finally, the woman let out a heavy breath. "I'll think about it." She turned slightly, glancing around at the others. "But if you're going to show our stories, you'd better do it right." Relief flooded Sarah, and as the tension began to dissipate like fog under sunlight, the atmosphere shifted. "Thank you," Sarah said softly. "We're in this together." As the crowd slowly dispersed, a sense of renewal emerged around them. Yet through the hope, Sarah felt the tension of what was still unresolved. As evening fell, Sarah pondered the journey ahead, the stories left to be told, and the power they would unearth. Would they all be ready to embrace their truth and share it with the world? Just as that question settled in her heart, a sudden shout tore through the newfound calm. "Look!" A child pointed. "The storm clouds are coming." Dark clouds rolled in, ominous and swift. Anxiety crept back into Sarah's chest. What would this storm bring? Would their progress wash away? The weight of uncertainty loomed large as the first raindrops began to fall. The sky grew darker as the raindrops started to fall, each drop heavy like the fears hovering over Sarah's heart. She had taken a step into the unknown, igniting a movement rooted in compassion and connection, yet the looming storm felt like a metaphor for all the challenges they might face. As she gathered her thoughts amid the chaos of the changing weather, her team around her forged a bond that felt stronger than ever. The man with the wild hair stood by, his eyes sparkling with determination. "We won't let the storm stop us, right?" he asked, his voice steady like a rock. "No way," Sarah replied, hope burning in her chest. "Let us get inside. We can talk more, share ideas, and focus on what we're building. We won't be scared away. We'll keep moving forward." They hurried back into the community center and regrouped, warmth radiating around them amid the cold rain outside. The conversations resumed with renewed vigor, people sharing stories, emotions flowing freely like the rainfall outside. As Sarah glanced around the room, it was clear that something profound had shifted. The people around her were not just contributors to a project, they were part of a family, a united front ready to confront anything together. Lily, the eager young woman, stood up, her voice ringing with excitement. "Let us make our stories even more visible. Let us organize community events. Bring people together and showcase the strength of our neighborhood." The billionaire chimed in, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Absolutely. We could create a festival of stories, art, and expression. A celebration of resilience. We'll invite everyone to participate and create a sense of belonging." The room buzzed with excitement, laughter rising and enthusiasm filling the air. The vision of what they could accomplish pushed aside the clouds of doubt, but then Sarah felt that familiar ache return, a reminder of her responsibility. "We must ensure that everyone feels included, even those who are cautious. We can't ignore their fears. We all must share the burden and make everyone welcome." "We can have workshops to discuss our fears," the man interjected. "We can create a safe space for open dialogue. Show everyone that it's okay to express vulnerability." "Yes," Sarah exclaimed. "We can feature inspiring stories intertwined with real discussions about our struggles, allowing voices to be heard from every corner of this community." With every suggestion, a deeper understanding grew among them. They were finding their footing together, understanding that transformation required not just empathy but action. Soon, renewed resolve sparkled in their eyes, and then there she was, the woman who had initially challenged them, stepping forward with a newfound determination of her own. "I see now that this isn't just a project for you, it's a call to action for all of us. I want to help." A collective breath was held as they all turned to her, and Sarah felt the stir of hope lift the weight off her chest. "Let us prove that change is possible," the woman continued, her voice steady. "Let us take this movement and spread it far and wide." Cheers erupted around the room, spirits soaring like balloons in the sky. Rain pelted the building, but inside, they felt only a bright future. "Hope doesn't fade with a storm," Sarah asserted, her heart brimming with joy. "It only grows stronger as we face challenges together." As they planned, laughter filled the room, mingling with plans to reach out to the broader community, sharing stories of struggle and triumph. Connections blossomed from shared vulnerability. Sarah realized that every voice mattered because each had the power to inspire others. And outside, the storm began to dissipate. Sunlight broke through the clouds, sending colorful rainbows arcing across the sky. It was a sign of blessing that washed away the doubt and fear that had loomed large moments ago. In that moment, Sarah felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "We're just getting started," she said, looking around at her newfound community. "This is the beginning of something beautiful." As the sun shone bright through the windows, illuminating their faces, they all felt the electric crackle of transformation in the air. Now, it was time to take their courage, their shared stories, and their unwavering determination, and step into the world with resolve. "Let us show everyone how powerful connection can be," she declared. And at that moment, they believed. Together, they would ignite the hearts of many through the simple act of sharing their truth. The storm had passed, and they were ready. Now is the time for you to carry this story forward. You need to subscribe now to be part of this movement, and don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to boost the algorithm and support this mission. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this ending. We want to hear how this transformation inspired you, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this power of connection. This is your moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second. Let's ignite change together.